Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a process, and working together is success. That's a very famous animal migration quote, and the author of that quote was a man called Henry Ford. So, as you would know, my name is Nicholas Sutcliffe, and I'm going to be presenting on animal migration and its impact on Earth. So, what is animal migration? First of all, you guys would think that animal migration is just traveling to other places. But animal migration is the relatively long distance that an animal takes to migrate because of food, water, shelter, and many more things. So, as you could see in the background, those birds, those are the spring snow goose. They migrate in the spring so that they can move away from the cold, so that they can find better warm shelter and stuff like that. And they also migrate for food. And animal migration, there are like millions of animal species that migrate. For example, like there's like millions of bird species and many more species like that. So creatures need freedom to migrate. So what does that mean? So creatures, basically, as you would know, if creatures are cramped, they won't migrate because if they feel watched, they'll feel threatened, which will make them just like run away in random directions and stuff like that. So, and if they do that, that'll mess up their migration patterns, which could cause severe loss of memory and even death because they run into the wrong places. So, the prehistoric migration versus modern migration. So, as you would probably guess, in prehistoric times, we had a brief, less sophisticated understanding of migration. And in modern migration, we have a way better understanding of migration, which is really good because it lets teachers teach kids, and in universities, it helps in that as well. And it helps us to understand animals better. And it also, in prehistoric times, a big one for the animals is that there was less man-made buildings and it was easier to migrate because of less buildings. Because if there's less man-made buildings, it'll let animals just roam the earth anywhere they want. For example, in Trinidad and Tobago used to be like just complete swamp until humans came here and they built all the buildings and made Port of Spain and stuff like that. So that causes animals to mix up their migration routines and patterns, which made them a bit confused. Like, because you know when you just see a bunch of animals crossing the street sometime? Yeah, that's because of the swamps in Trinidad. And also in the prehistoric times, there were only a few animals that migrated that were known of. Because, for example, birds were one of the first animals to be migrating and known about. And so the similarities between modern and prehistoric is that animals migrated for the same reason, for water, food, and shelter, and etc. etc. And so one of the similarities is that birds migrated then and they still migrate now because they're not extinct. And yeah, so that's quite good because we still have birds and stuff like that. So as you can see, the picture on the left is prehistoric times, the woolly mammoths migrating, and on the right it's modern migration, the birds migrating. My conclusion. So, animal migration is very important to the environment and our animals. Without animal migration, many things wouldn't be achieved. For example, nature wouldn't be able to regenerate, and animals would suffer because of loss of food, water, and many more. And animals are constantly looking for ways to survive and not get hunted and find food and many things like that. So, and this solution is called migration.